The battle was over until humanity's shock troops arrived. Part 1. The lights flickered on station as another explosion shook the massive structure. Commander Lisa Vance gripped the railing of the command deck and watched the tactical display with tired eyes. 16 days. They had been fighting for 16 days and the end was coming fast. Lieutenant Hall looked up from his console with a face that showed no hope. His uniform was torn, and there was dried blood on his forehead from a wound he had not bothered to treat. There were more important things to worry about than a small cut. "Commander, the Dominion fleet is moving into final position," he said. "They have 42 ships remaining. We have 2. Vance nodded slowly. She had known this moment was coming. When the siege began, they had 12 ships defending the station. Now only 2 remained and both were badly damaged. Below them, on the surface of Velar 7, 3 million colonists waited for a rescue that would never come. Ambassador walked across the command deck toward her. The diplomat was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His people had been allies of humanity for 30 years and Vance had always respected him. But right now, she did not want to hear what he had to say. "Commander Vance," said softly, "I have served beside humans for many years. I have seen your courage and your determination, but this battle is over. The coalition fleet was destroyed at Marker Point. No reinforcements are coming. Perhaps it is time to consider other options." "You mean surrender," Vance said. "The Dominion accepts capitulation. They are conquerors, not butchers. If we lay down our arms, they will spare the station. They will spare the colony below. Is your pride worth 3 million lives?" Vance turned to face him. Her eyes were hard but not angry. She understood his position. He was trying to save lives in the only way he could see, but he did not understand humans. Not really. "I sent a message to Earth 3 days ago," she said. Blinked in confusion. "Earth is 17 days away at maximum warp speed. Even if they sent ships immediately, they cannot arrive in time. The Dominion will attack within hours." "I know." "Then why mention this? What help can Earth possibly provide?" Before Vance could answer, a communication signal flashed on the main screen. Lieutenant Hall looked at his commander with a question in his eyes. She nodded, and he opened the channel. The face that appeared on screen belonged to High Commander of the Dominion. He was a reptilian creature with dark green scales and yellow eyes that held no warmth. His species had conquered dozens of worlds, and they saw mercy as weakness. "Human Commander said, you have fought well, better than most species we have encountered, but your fleet is gone. Your allies have abandoned you. Your coalition has fallen. I offer you this one chance. Surrender your station and your colony. Your people will live as subjects of the Dominion. Refuse and we will destroy everything. You have 1 hour to decide." The screen went dark. Silence filled the command deck. Officers and crew looked at their commander, waiting for her response. Some of them had families on the colony below. All of them were exhausted and afraid. Stepped closer to Vance. "Commander, please. Think of the children on that planet. Think of the innocent lives. There is no shame in accepting defeat when the alternative is extinction." Vance walked slowly to the communication console. She pressed the button to open a channel to the Dominion flagship. When his face appeared again, he looked pleased. He expected her surrender. "High Commander," Vance said, "I have considered your offer. My answer is no. We will not surrender, we will not kneel, and we will not die quietly." His eyes narrowed. "You would sacrifice 3 million lives for your foolish human pride." "I would sacrifice nothing. You see, I am not waiting for the coalition fleet. I am waiting for something else, something you have never faced." "And what is that?" Vance smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would change everything. "I am waiting for our shock troops." Laughed. The sound was cold and cruel. "Shock troops? My intelligence reports show that Earth has no military forces within 30 light years of this system. Your nearest rapid response units are engaged in battles on the other side of Coalition space. You are bluffing, human, and it is a poor bluff. Then you have nothing to worry about, Vance said. I guess you can just wait and see what happens. She ended the communication, stared at her like she had lost her mind. Commander, what shock troops? There are no human forces anywhere near here. What did you tell them in your message to Earth? Vance turned to look out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, 17 days away, her message had been received. She knew it had been received because she knew the people who would receive it. They would come. They always came. 3 words, she said quietly. I sent 3 words. What words? Send the 77th. Shook his head. He had heard rumors about human military units, but he did not know what the 77th meant. He did not understand why those 3 words made Lieutenant Hall stand up at his console. He did not see the small spark of hope that appeared in the eyes of every human on the command deck. On the Dominion flagship, a young intelligence officer named reviewed the intercepted human distress call. It was short, just 3 words as the human commander had said, send the 77th. Did not know what it meant either, but something about those words made him uneasy. He would investigate further. He would learn what the 77th was and why a defeated commander would pin all her hopes on those 3 simple words. Back on station, Lisa Vance returned to her command chair. Around her, the station continued to burn. The enemy fleet continued to circle. The clock continued to count down toward destruction. But she was not afraid. She had served beside the 77th once, many years ago. Her brother had died wearing their uniform. She knew what they were capable of. She knew that distance and time meant nothing to them when innocent lives were at stake. Lieutenant Hall, she said calmly, prepare all remaining defenses. We are not surrendering and we are not dying. We are going to hold this station until help arrives. Yes, Commander. How long do we need to hold? Vance looked at the stars once more. As long as it takes, they are coming, they always come. The battle was over until humanity's shock troops arrived. Part 2. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched station burn. The human commander had refused his generous offer, and now she would pay the price. In a few hours, his forces would destroy the station and claim the colony below. Another world would fall to the Dominion, and his name would be remembered in the halls of conquest. But something bothered him, a small thing, a tiny doubt that he could not shake. Entered the bridge and approached his commander with a data tablet in his hands. The young officer looked troubled and did not like troubled officers. Troubled officers brought bad news. High Commander said, I have investigated the human distress call, the one that mentioned the 77th. And what did you find? Some desperate lie, some pathetic attempt to frighten us. Hesitated. That hesitation told everything he needed to know. Whatever had found, it was not good. Speak, commanded. The 77th Rapid Assault Division is a special military unit of the Earth Forces. They call themselves the Hammers. They were created 12 years ago for a single purpose: rescue missions behind enemy lines. Waved his hand dismissively. Rescue missions, so they save people. This does not concern me. Every military has such units. High Commander, I thought the same at first, but then I read their operational history. Looked down at his tablet. Minor, 8 years ago. A human colony was attacked by raiders. The local defense force was destroyed in the first hour. The colony was declared lost, completely lost. No hope of survival. And the 77th arrived 40 hours later. They fought for 18 hours straight without rest. They killed over 2,000 enemy combatants. They rescued 12,000 survivors from underground shelters, 12,000 people who were supposed to be dead. Felt his scales tighten, but he said nothing. He gestured for to continue. The offensive, 5 years ago. A civilian evacuation convoy was trapped in a mountain pass by enemy forces. 15,000 soldiers surrounded them. The 77th sent 400 troops to hold the pass. Paused. They held it for 3 days. 3 days against 15,000. When the evacuation ships finally arrived, 212 soldiers of the 77th remained alive, but every civilian was saved. Every single one. Impressive, admitted, but still just soldiers. They bleed and die like anyone else. Yes, High Commander, they do bleed. They do die. But here is what troubles me. Looked up from his tablet and met his commander's eyes. In 12 years of operation, the 77th has conducted 47 rescue missions. 47 missions across enemy territory behind hostile lines against impossible odds. And how many have they failed? None. Was silent for a long moment. None. In 47 missions they had never failed. Not once. That was not luck. That was not skill. That was something else. Something that made even a conquering high commander feel a cold sensation in his chest. They have a motto, continued. 3 words that define everything they do. None left behind. None forgotten. They do not abandon their people, ever, for any reason. Earth is 17 days away, said slowly. Even these hammers cannot fly faster than physics allows. The human commander is bluffing. She must be. I hope you are right, High Commander. I truly hope you are right. On station, Commander Lisa Vance sat in her quarters for the first time in 3 days. She had finally allowed herself a few minutes of rest while Lieutenant Hall managed the bridge. But rest would not come. Her mind was too full of memories. She looked at the small photograph on her desk. A young man in a military uniform smiled back at her. Her brother, Daniel. He had been 24 years old when he joined the 77th. He had been 26 when he died at Minor. The door chimed and she called for entry. Lieutenant Hall stepped inside, looking uncomfortable. He was young, barely 25, and he had never served in a real battle before this siege. But he had proven himself over the past 16 days. He was a good officer. Commander, he said, I wanted to ask you something about the 77th. Sit down. He sat across from her and looked at the photograph she was still holding. Is that your brother? Yes, Daniel Vance. He died at Minor, one of the missions that made the 77th famous. She smiled sadly. He was in the unit that found the children's shelter. 300 kids hiding underground while the world burned above them. The enemy found the shelter at the same time the 77th did. Daniel's squad held the entrance while the evacuation happened. How long did they hold it? 4 hours. By the time the last child was safe, Daniel was the only one still alive. He took 11 bullets. The medics said he should have died after the 3rd one, but he kept fighting, kept standing in that doorway, kept shooting until every child was gone. Hall was quiet for a moment. Did he survive? No, he died on the evacuation ship, but he died smiling. 300 children lived because of him, because he refused to stop, because stopping meant failing them. Vance put the photograph back on her desk. That is what the 77th does. They find the people who cannot save themselves and they bring them home, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. Do you really think they can get here in time? Earth is so far away. I do not know how, but I know they will try. I know they will do things that should be impossible because the alternative is letting innocent people die. And that is something the 77th cannot accept. Outside the station, the Dominion fleet continued to move into attack position. 42 warships against a broken station and 2 damaged defenders. The math was simple. The outcome was certain. But somewhere far away, in the darkness between stars, something was happening that simple math and certain outcomes. The carrier Defiance tore through dimensions that should not exist. Its hull screamed with stress that should have ripped it apart. Its crew suffered through pain that should have killed them. But they kept going. They kept pushing forward. Colonel Cole stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched the impossible happen. The ship was using technology that was barely tested. Technology that could compress 17 days of travel into 3. Technology that might kill them all before they reached their destination. But there were 3 million people waiting for rescue. There was a station full of defenders who had refused to surrender. There was a commander who had sent 3 words across the stars and trusted that someone would answer. The 77th always answered. "How much longer?" Cole asked. 2 days, Colonel, if the ship holds together." "It will hold, it has to hold." On the tactical display, a small dot represented station. A small dot that contained everything the 77th existed to protect. Innocent lives, brave defenders, hope in the darkness. None left behind, none forgotten. The Defiance pushed forward through dimensions of pain and impossibility, carrying 600 soldiers who had volunteered to risk everything for strangers they had never met. Because that was what humans did. That was what the Hammers did. And the Dominion was about to learn a lesson they would never forget. The battle was over until humanity's shock troops arrived. Part 3. The Defiance was dying. Colonel Cole could feel it in the vibrations beneath his feet and hear it in the screaming of metal that filled every corridor. The ship had been designed to carry soldiers into battle, not to tear holes through the fabric of space itself. But here they were, doing the impossible because the possible was not enough. Captain sat at the pilot's console with blood running from his nose. The dimensional stress affected everyone differently. Some people felt sick. Some people felt pain, felt like his brain was trying to escape through his sinuses, but he kept his hands on the controls and his eyes on the screens. 2 more hours, said through gritted teeth. 2 more hours and we exit the skip, if the engines hold. They will hold, Cole said. His voice was calm and steady. It had to be. 600 soldiers were counting on him to be the rock they could anchor themselves to. Dr. Helen Marsh entered the bridge with a report that Cole did not want to hear. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been the ship's doctor for 15 years and had seen more death than most soldiers. But today her face was pale. "Colonel, we lost 4 more in the past hour. That brings our total to 41 dead since we started the skip." Cole closed his eyes for just a moment. 41 soldiers dead, and they had not even reached the battle yet. 41 men and women who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not survive the journey. Their names: Sergeant Corporal Long, Private First Class Tony, Private Moss. Dr. Marsh handed him a tablet with their service records. All volunteers, all knew the risks. "They will be remembered. Add them to the list." The list. Every soldier who died on a 77th mission was added to the list. Their names were read aloud at every ceremony, every memorial, every graduation. The 77th never forgot its fallen. Never. Cole walked through the ship to address his troops. The corridors were filled with soldiers in various states of distress. Some were vomiting, some were unconscious. Some were simply sitting against walls with their eyes closed, fighting through the pain. But when Cole passed, they straightened. They looked at him. They waited for his words. He reached the main cargo bay, where most of the division was gathered. 600 soldiers minus the 41 they had already lost. 559 men and women who had answered the call when it came. Sergeant Major Diana Price stood at the front of the assembly. She was a tall woman with dark skin and eyes that had seen too much. She had served with the 77th for 10 years and had the scars to prove it. When Cole nodded to her, she called the troops to attention. "At ease," Cole said. "Sit down if you need to. I know this journey has been hard." The soldiers relaxed slightly, but none of them sat. They were the 77th. They did not show weakness, even when weakness would have been completely understandable. "In 2 hours, we will exit the skip and enter the Velar system. We will find station under siege by a Dominion fleet of 42 warships. The station is defended by 2 damaged ships and a few thousand brave souls who have been fighting for over 2 weeks. Below the station is a colony of 3 million civilians. Men, women, and children who are counting on us to save them. He paused and looked at the faces before him, young faces and old faces, scared faces and determined faces, all of them watching him, waiting for him to tell them it would be okay. I will not lie to you, the odds are not good. The enemy outnumbers us badly. Our ship is falling apart. We have already lost 41 brothers and sisters just getting here. Some of us will not make it home. Silence filled the cargo bay. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of acceptance. These soldiers knew what they had signed up for. They had all made peace with the possibility of death long ago. But let me tell you something else. On that station is a commander who refused to surrender. When her fleet was destroyed, when her allies told her it was over, when the enemy offered her a chance to live, she said no. She said no because she believed in us. She believed that we would come, that we would find a way across 17 days of space in 3 days of time, that we would do the impossible because we have done the impossible before. Cole's voice grew stronger. That is who we are. We are the ones who come when everyone else has given up. We are the ones who fight when fighting makes no sense. We are the ones who carry the wounded and bury the dead and save the living. We are the hammers, and today we fall. The soldiers responded as one, their voices filling the cargo bay with 3 words that had defined the 77th since its creation. None left behind. None forgotten, Cole answered. Sergeant Major Price moved through the troops as they prepared for combat drop. She checked equipment, adjusted straps, and spoke quiet words of encouragement. She had done this dozens of times before. Each time, she wondered how many of these faces she would never see again. She stopped beside a young private who looked barely old enough to shave. His hands were shaking as he tried to secure his helmet. "First mission?" she asked. "Yes, Sergeant Major. I graduated 3 weeks ago." "What is your name, Private?" "Grant, Sergeant Major." Price helped him with his helmet strap. "Listen to me. In a few hours, things are going to get very loud and very scary. You are going to see things that will stay with you forever. But here is what I want you to remember. You are not alone. You have 500 brothers and sisters dropping with you. We watch out for each other. We protect each other. We bring each other home." "Yes, Sergeant Major." "Good. Now check your weapon and get ready." The final 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation and prayer. Soldiers wrote letters to loved ones, knowing they might be the last words they ever sent. Some prayed to gods of a dozen different faiths. Some simply sat in silence, gathering their courage for what was to come. When the Defiance finally tore free of the dimensional skip, the ship groaned like a wounded animal. Warning lights flashed across every console. Hull breaches appeared in 3 sections, but they had made it. They had crossed 17 days in 3. Captain looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. Station was surrounded by Dominion warships. The station was burning in a dozen places. The 2 remaining defender ships were barely moving, their hulls torn open by enemy fire. Colonel said, "We are too late, the station is falling." Cole looked at the display. He saw the fire and the death and the destruction. He saw what looked like the end of everything. But he also saw something else. He saw the station was still there. He saw people still fighting. He saw hope, small and fragile, refusing to die. "We are not too late," he said. "All units prepare for combat drop. We are going in." 600 drop pods launched from the battered Defiance, screaming toward the battle like falling stars. On the Dominion flagship, sensors lit up with contacts that should not exist. High Commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "That is impossible," he whispered. "They cannot be here, they cannot." But they were here. The hammers were falling, and everything was about to change. The battle was over until humanity's shock troops arrived. Part 4. The drop pods hit like thunder from an angry god. Colonel Cole felt the impact as his pod breached the hull of the Dominion flagship and buried itself deep inside the enemy vessel. Before the dust settled, he was already moving, his weapon raised, his soldiers pouring out behind him. Alpha Team, secure this deck. Bravo Team, push toward the bridge. We take this ship and we break their command structure. Dominion soldiers rushed to meet them, but they were not prepared. They had expected to finish off a broken station and a defeated enemy. They had not expected 200 human warriors to appear inside their flagship like ghosts made of fury and determination. Cole moved through the corridors with lethal precision. Every shot he fired found its target. Every step he took brought him closer to the bridge where High Commander waited. Behind him, his soldiers fought with a ferocity that made the Dominion forces hesitate. On station, Sergeant Major Diana Price led her team through twisted metal and burning wreckage. The station was dying around them, but somewhere in this chaos was Commander Lisa Vance. Price was going to find her. "Sergeant Major, heavy contact ahead," one of her soldiers shouted. Price saw them. 20 Dominion troops had set up a defensive position blocking the path to the command deck. They had cover, numbers, and time to prepare. Any sensible commander would find another way around. Price was not interested in sensible. "Covering fire, move on my signal." Her team opened fire, forcing the Dominion troops to take cover. Price sprinted forward, moving faster than a woman her age should be able to move. She had been doing this for 10 years. She knew exactly how much time she had between enemy shots. 3 seconds later, she was among them. Her combat knife found the first throat before the soldier even knew she was there. Her pistol took out 2 more at point-blank range. Her elbow broke a jaw. Her boot shattered a knee. By the time her team caught up, the defensive position was clear. Price stood among the fallen enemy troops with barely a scratch on her. "Move," she said. "We are not stopping until we reach the commander." On the flagship, Colonel Cole reached the bridge entrance. The doors were sealed and reinforced. 10 Dominion soldiers stood guard with weapons raised. "Surrender," Cole said. "Your ship is lost. Your fleet is scattered. There is no need for more death today." The lead guard laughed. "You are 1 human, we are 10. You are the one who should surrender." Cole did not waste time arguing. He moved. The first guard fell before he could raise his weapon. The second managed to fire, but Cole was no longer where he had been standing. The third and fourth died in quick succession, their bodies hitting the floor before their minds understood what was happening. The remaining guards tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Cole was everywhere and nowhere, a shadow made of violence and precision. In 12 seconds, all 10 guards were down and Cole was not even breathing hard. He placed a charge on the door and blew it open. Inside, High Commander stood beside his command chair with a ceremonial blade in his hand. The bridge crew had either fled or fallen. Only the commander remained. "So you are the human they sent," said. "The impossible soldier who crossed 17 days in 3. "My name is Cole, Colonel 77th Rapid Assault Division. You have 2 choices, Commander. Surrender your fleet and your people live. Continue fighting and they do not." Studied the human before him. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had faced warriors from a dozen species, but he had never seen eyes like this. There was no rage in them, no hatred, just cold, absolute determination. "Why?" asked. "Why come all this way? Why risk everything for strangers? These colonists are not your people. This station is not your home. What do you gain from this madness?" "They needed help. That is all the reason we need." That is not an answer. No species fights like this for strangers. No species sacrifices so much for nothing. Cole stepped closer. "You want to know why we came? Because a commander refused to surrender when everyone told her it was over. Because 3 million civilians were going to die if someone did not act. Because somewhere on that station right now, one of my soldiers is probably shielding a wounded ally with her own body. That is who we are. We protect people. All people. Even people we have never met." On station, Cole's words were proven true. Private Grant, the young soldier on his first mission, threw himself over a wounded civilian as enemy fire filled the corridor. The shots meant for the alien struck the human instead. 3 rounds hit his back, stopped by his armor but still painful enough to make him scream. But he did not move. He stayed there, protecting the stranger, until Sergeant Major Price arrived and eliminated the threat. "You okay, kid?" Price asked as she helped him up. "Yes, Sergeant Major. Is the safe?" Price looked at the alien civilian who was staring at the young human with something like awe. "Yeah, he is safe. You did good." They reached the command deck 10 minutes later. Commander Lisa Vance was there, wounded but alive, still directing what remained of her defense forces. When she saw the 77th soldiers pour through the doors, she nearly collapsed. Price caught her. "Easy, Commander, we have got you." "You came," Vance whispered. "You actually came." "Ma'am, did you really think we would not?" On the flagship, High Commander had made his choice. He dropped his blade and ordered his fleet to stand down. The battle was over. The Dominion had lost. But had one more question for the human colonel. "At Minor, your soldiers died by the hundreds to save colonists they had never met. At the offensive, they held against impossible odds for 3 days. Now this insane journey through broken space, this assault against a superior fleet." He shook his head slowly. "What are you? What kind of creatures throw their lives away for strangers?" Cole looked at him for a long moment. "We are humans. We are what happens when you threaten our people." "But they were not your people. The colonists, the station crew, they were strangers." "You do not understand," Cole said. "To us, there are no strangers. There are only people who need help and people who do not. Everyone is our people." Was silent. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that thought this way. It was madness. It was beautiful madness. The Dominion fleet retreated, leaving behind 3 captured ships and thousands of prisoners. The battle for Station was over. The impossible rescue had succeeded. On the station, Sergeant Major Price stood beside Commander Vance and watched the enemy fleet disappear into the darkness. "Your brother served with us," Price said quietly. "Daniel Vance, I knew him." Vance turned to look at her. "You did." "He was a good man, a good soldier. He died making sure 300 children went home to their parents." Price put a hand on Vance's shoulder. "He would be proud of what you did here, holding the line until help arrived, refusing to give up. That is exactly what he would have done." Vance felt tears running down her face. She did not try to stop them. "Thank you for telling me that, for coming, for everything." "That is what we do, Commander. We come, we fight, we bring people home." Price looked at the stars where the enemy fleet had vanished. "None left behind, none forgotten." "None left behind," Vance repeated. "None forgotten." The battle was over until humanity's shock troops arrived. Part 5. The fires on Station were finally dying. 3 days had passed since the Dominion fleet retreated, and the survivors were beginning to believe they might actually live. Medical teams worked around the clock treating the wounded. Engineers struggled to repair critical systems. And everywhere, humans and aliens worked side by side to rebuild what had been destroyed. Colonel Cole stood in the station's memorial garden, a small space with artificial grass and fake sunlight that felt completely real. In his hands, he held a list of names. 198 soldiers of the 77th had died in the assault. Combined with the 41 who died during the skip jump, he had lost 239 people under his command. 239 families would receive letters telling them their loved ones were not coming home. 239 names would be added to the memorial wall at 77th headquarters on Earth. 239 heroes who had given everything for people they had never met. Sergeant Major Diana Price found him there, staring at the list like he could change the numbers if he looked hard enough. "Colonel, Commander Vance is asking for you." Cole nodded but did not move. Do you ever wonder if it is worth it, Diana, the cost we pay? Price stood beside him and looked at the list in his hands. She recognized many of the names. Some had been friends. Some had been soldiers she trained. All of them had been family. I wonder every time, she admitted. Every mission I ask myself if the price is too high, and then I remember the faces. The faces. The people we saved, the children at Minor, the civilians at the 3 million colonists on the planet below us right now. She took a deep breath. I cannot remember every name of every person we lost, but I remember every face of every person we saved, and the faces always outnumber the names. Cole finally looked up from the list. That is a beautiful way to think about it. I learned it from the man who trained me. He died on my third mission holding a door so the rest of us could escape. Price smiled sadly. He said the same thing. Remember the faces. They make the names easier to carry. They found Commander Vance in a temporary medical ward, her arm in a sling and bandages covering half her face. But she was alive. She was standing. And when she saw Cole, she saluted with her good arm. Colonel, I wanted to thank you properly for everything you and your people did. No thanks needed, Commander. We were just doing our job. Your job? Vance shook her head. You crossed 17 days of space in 3 days. You lost over 200 soldiers. Your ship may never fly again, and you call it just a job. Cole shrugged. That is what we signed up for, to go where we are needed, to save who can be saved, to make sure no one gets left behind. Ambassador approached them slowly. The diplomat looked different than he had 3 days ago. The fear and despair were gone from his eyes. Something else had replaced them, something that looked almost like wonder. Colonel Cole, he said, I owe you an apology. For what? When Commander Vance refused to surrender, I thought she was mad. I told her that no help could possibly arrive in time. I urged her to give up, to accept defeat, to save what lives she could by bowing to the enemy. Looked at Vance with shame in his eyes. I did not believe. I did not understand. You were being practical, Cole said. You were trying to save lives. There is no shame in that. But I was wrong, not about the math or the physics. I was wrong about something more important. I was wrong about what humans are willing to do, turned back to Cole. My people have been allies of humanity for 30 years. I thought I understood you. I did not until now. 3 weeks later, Ambassador stood before the Coalition Council. Representatives from 40 different species filled the great chamber, all of them waiting to hear about the Battle of Station. Had requested this opportunity to speak, and the council had granted it. Distinguished representatives, he began, I come before you today to report on events at Station. But more than that, I come to share what I learned about our human allies, what I witnessed, what it changed in me. He told them the story, the siege, the hopelessness, the refusal to surrender, the impossible message sent across 17 days of space, and then the arrival, the drop pods falling like stars, the soldiers fighting through flame and death, the rescue that should not have happened. The humans have a unit called the 77th Rapid Assault Division, continued. They call themselves the Hammers. In 12 years they have never failed a rescue mission. Never. They have lost thousands of soldiers. They have faced odds that would make any rational species retreat. But they keep going. They keep fighting. They keep saving lives. A representative raised a tendril. Ambassador, we have all heard stories of human military capabilities. What makes this different? What makes this different is who they saved. Paused to let his words sink in. The colonists on Velar 7 were not human. Nearly half of them were my own people. The rest were a mix of a dozen species. Humans were less than 20% of the population. The chamber grew quiet, continued. 239 human soldiers died at Station. They died protecting aliens, strangers, people who were not their species, not their nation, not their family. They died because a commander sent 3 words across the stars and an entire division answered without hesitation. "What 3 words?" they asked. "Send the 77th. Looked around the chamber at the faces of 40 different species. I asked Colonel Cole why. Why come so far? Why sacrifice so much for strangers? He told me something I will never forget. He said to humans, there are no strangers. There are only people who need help and people who do not. The silence in the chamber was absolute. That is what humanity is, said. Not their ships or their weapons or their technology. Their willingness to bleed for creatures they have never met. Their refusal to abandon anyone, regardless of species or origin. Their belief that all life has value and all life deserves protection. On Earth, 2 months after the battle, new recruits stood in formation at 77th Headquarters. They were young and nervous and full of dreams of glory. They had heard the stories. They had watched the videos. They knew what they were joining. Colonel Cole stood before them with Sergeant Major Diana Price at his side. Behind them, carved into a massive wall of black stone, were the names of every soldier who had ever fallen serving with the 77th. 239 new names had been added last week. Before you take the oath, Cole said, you will hear the names. Every name on that wall represents someone who gave their life so others could live. You will remember them. You will honor them. You will carry their legacy forward. An officer began reading the names. It took almost an hour. With each name, the recruits responded with 3 words. Sergeant. Remembered. Private Grant. Remembered. Corporal Long. Remembered. The young private who had shielded a civilian with his own body had not survived his wounds. He had been 19 years old. His name was now carved in stone forever. When the reading was complete, Cole looked at the recruits with pride and sorrow. Those names are why we exist, not for glory, not for conquest, but for the simple promise that we will never stop fighting for those who cannot fight for themselves. None left behind, none forgotten. The recruits responded as one. None left behind, none forgotten. Price watched the ceremony with the same mix of emotions she always felt. Pride in what they did, sorrow for what it cost, hope for what it meant. Think we will ever get a mission that is actually possible? She asked quietly. Cole almost smiled. Where is the fun in that? They stood together in the fading light, 2 soldiers who had seen too much death and saved too many lives. Behind them, the wall of names grew longer every year. Before them, a new generation prepared to carry on the mission. In the vast darkness between stars, humanity had found its purpose. Not conquest, not glory, just a simple, unbreakable promise that echoed across every world and every species they had ever saved. Wherever their people called, wherever innocence suffered, wherever hope had died, the hammers would fall. None left behind, none forgotten forever.